What's up, Everyday Blades? Man, I haven't been on here for a while. I have been crazy busy. So, a lot of you know, for the past few months, I've been setting up a knife making shop. I've done it, I piddle with it a little bit here and there. I grew up working metal, so a lot of this stuff wasn't foreign to me. It's just actually learning to make a knife. So I decided to jump in, and I've been buying this stuff for a couple of years now. Finally purchased a belt grinder and the final attachments and stuff. Got my shop set up. I'm the type of person that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 100%. I'm not going to start out small and work my way up. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to get the best equipment I can afford, sometimes better than I can afford. Make sure I have all my stuff here. Nothing worse in the world than getting started on something and getting some momentum and, oh, I don't have this or I don't have that. So I spent a lot of time putting everything together. Scales, and I probably got, oh my God, 20 species of wood in there for scales, and tons and tons of knife steel, just precision ground stock. And that's what I'm doing is stock removal. There's two different kinds of knife building that I know about, and I'm no kind of expert. Barely would be considered an amateur. Two that I know about are stock removal and then forging a knife from scratch. I'm just not interested in forging steel. I mean, it's just not something that I'm into. So I buy the raw blank steel. Some of it's precision ground, some of it's not. I have a surface grinder, so that's not a big deal. And then, grind it on the belt grinder to the shape that I want and fitting the handles up. And the biggest thing I was worried about turned out to be the easiest thing for me. That was grinding the bevels. I actually didn't have much of a challenge with that. I did pretty well with that, I think. The biggest challenge for me was not putting enough research and effort into actually shaping and installing handle scales, because that's a whole art to itself. It turned out okay. It turned out nice. I mean, so this was like a test knife. This was just run through as fast as I can and mainly see what am I missing, what do I not have. So I took I bought a sprocket, a secondhand. Well, it was a brand new sprocket, but it just never got used. Big, thick sprocket, some type of hardened steel, mystery steel. And I cut it out on my bandsaw and shaped it and made this knife out of it. And it's got its obvious flaws, and it's a decent, first attempt. But like I said, I didn't put a lot of effort into it. You see, it's still tool marks in there. I mainly wanted to see what I was missing as far as the procedure, what types of epoxy I was going to use, what type of pins I was going to use. Was I going to use Corby fasteners? I wanted to kind of run through those things, and that's what this turned out. This was just throw together in a few nights of working. So my first actual knife that I put effort into, and I really kind of rushed it too, but I started it last night after work and finished it this morning. And I built this one, and it's kind of a play off of the Spyderco Mule knife, the one they send you with doesn't have the scales on it. I kind of looked at a picture of that one and sketched this one out. I got the dimensions of the blade and stuff and kind of sketched it out and put it on some huge 5/16 01 tool steel, and then put some cool pins on it. I think this was technically my first knife that I tried on, that I gave effort into making it look nice, and I think it turned out cool. And I've gotten a lot of comments, oh my God, that thing is huge. Well, I did that for effect, for a reason. I wanted it to be over the top. This wasn't meant to be a practical knife. It's meant to be an attention getter. It's one of the reasons I like Medfords, because they're huge and fat and cool to me, and I like this knife. I really like it a lot. I wanted to show you one of my inspirations for making fixed blade knives. So until a few months ago, I didn't have a lot of interest in fixed blade knives. I had always had an interest in making knives and probably knew they were going to be fixed blade first and then go to folders because folders are a whole different animal. It's machinery and everything like that. But I found this knife at a pawn shop. It's got a few smudges right there. This is made by a man named Bob Dozier. And evidently he's famous for his D2 tool steel. He gets the heat treat just perfect, just from doing it for years and years and years. I think that's the only steel he's used or mostly used. But his fit and finish is insane. It's just beautiful. This knife is so practical. It fits in the hand so well. And I watched an interview with him and he said his knives are users, are made to be used and blah, blah, blah. But man, that knife is beautiful. I mean, on top of being a user, it's a beautiful knife. That knife, from my research, is probably about at least 15 years old. And it's beautiful. I polished up the brass a little bit because it had rubbed on the inside of the sheath. But man, if I could ever get knives up to that quality right there, I would be more than happy, because I want my knives to be used. I want to build knives that people buy and use them. I understand this is a EDC size knife and it's, you know, a little heavy and it's wide, but I didn't build this to sell to anyone. This is mine. This is, you know, in my eyes, this is my first knife. And I haven't sharpened, I haven't put an edge on it yet. I still got some polishing up. It's got some small scratches in it. This is a showpiece for me. This is something to have and carry and show to people, to show them my work. I have plans to do more knives about this size. I have plans to do some of these in a thinner stock. But I bought a couple of the Spyderco mules, right? They're super thin is the one thing I noticed about them, and I like a little bit thicker blades, so I ordered some thicker blade stock, and I'm gonna make some similar to, I'm not gonna make the exact same knife, but the overall kind of size and shape of it is generally gonna be close. But I want a little bit thicker or heavier knife, not like this. This is, I don't even think I've ever seen a knife with 5/16 blade stock in person, but now I have. But anyway, these are my first two. And I think for two, just scratch. I mean, you can obviously see the improvement from the one I cared about and the one that I didn't care much for. This is a rosewood, and I kind of tried to pick the scales I had that were the least pretty, and man, I think I ended up liking these the best. That rosewood is beautiful, man. It feels amazing. I have a lot of it. I'm going to be using it quite a bit. So anyway, this is a 01 tool steel, and like I said, this is a mystery sprocket steel. But those are my first attempts at knife making. I just wanted to share it with you guys and kind of bring you along as I learn. I got some really nice equipment, a great belt grinder. Origin Blade Makers, the company's a pretty good company. I've kind of emailed back and forth with the owner, and I've even bought the surface grinder attachment, which is really cool. I'll have to show you guys that when it comes. But this is just first steps into my journey into knife making, and I wanted to share it with you guys. I kind of share everything with you guys. So anyway, God bless you and your families. Say a prayer for our country. Good night.